Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, Three Principles practitioner, Del Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading Three Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. I'm thrilled to have as my guest Elsie Spittle. From homemaker to global consultant and mentor to leading Three Principle practitioners, Elsie has devoted her life to sharing this transformative mental health paradigm with the world. Married for 55 years with a loving and supportive family, Elsie has her own private business as a co-founder of the Three Principles School located on Salt Spring Island, British Columbia. She is the author of 5 books based on the Three Principles. Welcome, Elsie. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here with you, Adey.
Thank you.
Dale.
Yeah. And I just that now I have you in front of me, want to thank you again for the conference. The feeling and it was just such a beautiful experience. You were all so generous and so kind. And certainly for me, I walked away with it feeling very much like just go out there, sort of share the principles, do it your way. Just so much love and encouragement that I just really want to let you know that. That's what I walked away with. Beautiful feeling.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I felt the same, Dale, honestly. Yeah. I was just so inspired by those 2 days, 3 days, whatever it was. Yeah. And I came home just filled to the brim with creative ideas and just was inspired by the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was great. And one of the things I loved was seeing us so-called pioneers from the early days, how many of us have gray hair and a few more aches and pains, but that there's still a vitality that all of us experience. And that really stood out to me. Because
beautiful.
When I look back at my parents and when they were my age, they didn't have that same vitality. Life was hard for them. And I really attribute this inner vitality, despite the senior years, to understanding something about the Three Principles.
Yeah, I think that's so true, and it's so evident. And also just in your relationships, I think I've never seen so many beautiful, healthy, long-term relationships. The love is there, the newness is there, the respect and the peacefulness between the couples, I think is incredible.
Yes, That's so true. I mean, Ken and I are coming up to 56 years now in August. And many of the young mentees I have, when I talk with them every now and then, it kind of strikes me that they're so young. And I can't believe that Ken and I still find newness in our relationship. I think I may have a chapter in the book, The Path to Contentment, about, that feeling of freshness and vitality in long-term relationships, because a young mentee said to me, is that possible? And how is that possible? And I love the fact that not only is it possible, but it's almost a guarantee.
Yeah.
Because we, as individual souls, keep changing, we keep growing, and our understanding of life and how we create our experience continues to unfold and develop. And so we continue to be new. And it's that newness in each other as a couple that really speaks to long-term relationships.
Yeah, I think, and also for me, I know that what has helped me in my relationship too is the respect of really understanding the separate realities and not expecting my partner to see the world like I see it.
Right.
I on reflection, I look at, past relationships where I had that expectation. It puts a lot of pressure on a relationship.
Yes, I know what you mean. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too, Del. I mean, I had that expectation not just of my husband and my children, um, but of our friends. Is that they should think the same way I think, and some did. That's why we were friends, and that was part of what was so troubling to me. That when Sid Banks, who is the originator of these three principles that we talk about, we got along so well with him and his wife in those early days because we thought in similar ways. You know, we were insecure in this world, and so we got along very well. But when he had this profound realization, his attitude toward life changed.
I know.
He
I
was
love
no
it when you
longer
share that.
insecure.
Yeah.
And,
Tell me a bit more about that. I love that story about how hard it was for you.
Well, that was so troubling because we had been really good friends, and my husband had worked with him for 8 years in the pulp mill. Sid was a welder and Ken was a pipe fitter. And I got to know Sid toward the end of those 8 years they worked together. And as I said, we got along so well, but then he had this realization that he always called a simple realization, but ended up really being the foundation for this new paradigm in the fields of psychology and psychiatry. And so his security, his certainty, his ability to see what is in life rather than what isn't really frightened me.
Yeah.
And he talked in a spiritual way. He talked about this energy behind life as being spiritual energy, you know, this formless energy. And then he would puzzle us by talking about it in physics, in the terms of physics, as just being formless energy, not even, you know, using the word spiritual. All of this was very confusing. How could a welder who had very little education and had no education in philosophy or psychology or psychiatry could start to talk about the energy behind life in spiritual terms and in you know, physics terms, the energy behind life. He would talk about time, space, and matter, that there's something beyond that. And so that really frightened us. And I had a very religious upbringing. And so his definition of spiritual being non-material, and my definition of religion did not coincide, were not in alignment. And I became very fearful and hid from him. There was a year and a half of increasing resistance to him, to his teachings. And he wouldn't teach unless I innocently asked him a question. And then I would get highly indignant because I would say to him, look, we'd love to have you come over for a cup of tea or come for dinner, but please don't keep talking about this nonsense to me. And he just grinned from ear to ear and say, well, dearie, you asked me questions. Well, I didn't think I was. You know, I was so gripped by my personal thinking that I honestly didn't realize I would be asking him a question, most of the time about thought. There was something about thought that intrigued me. And then when I would ask him again, you know, Sid, the last time you were here, you mentioned that with our thinking, we create our experience in life. And how can that be? Because, you know, I just show up, my life is already formed. And if I have anything to do with creating my experiences, I'd be creating nicer ones than what I'm living in now. I remember saying to him, like, if you're saying that life is a bowl of cherries, I feel like my life is the pits. And he was he would just twinkle at me again, which was most annoying, is that he wouldn't engage with my anger or my frustration or my wanting to engage in negativity. He would just grin at me. And so the last time, after a year and a half, where I saw him and his wife at the time, who passed away many years later, coming up our driveway, it was like, oh Lord, just heaven save me. I don't know what to do with this couple again. I was feeling particularly miserable. And that old adage, misery loves company. Well, Sid was not in misery any longer. He was living in well-being, and that well-being coming up the driveway was too much for me. So I hid in the bathroom and heard them knocking on the door and then walking in. And long story short, I waited till I heard the door close, and I'm still waiting. And something propelled me out of that bathroom. And that was the start of my journey. I beckoned them back in, but I really couldn't invite them to sit down because I was just so caught up in my angst. And so shortly after that, they left. But before they left, Sid gave me a little cuddle and spoke these beautiful words to me about, you'll be okay, dearie, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Everybody has this spiritual energy in them as you do, and you'll be okay. And that just made me even worse. That was the end of the trail. And I thought, okay, that's it, finished, opened the door, off they went. And truly, that was the start of my journey. That shortly after that, in a conversation with a mutual friend that was giving me no satisfaction, I had an insight. And I began to see that there truly was something to what this man was sharing with us and with the world. That we really do have this tremendous gift of wisdom, innate wisdom within us.
Yeah.
And I'd always thought, because of my religious background, that we'd been born in sin. And I found no peace in that concept. I found no hope in that concept. And all of a sudden, when I had the first insight that thought creates feeling, I was filled with hope. And
that's so beautiful.
Here we are.
Yeah, I think it's so incredible that somebody like Sid would have this epiphany, this enlightenment experience, whatever you want to call it, because it gives hope to all of us. And when you share that story too, I think you give hope to people that don't get it like that. Because many, people, I didn't get it like that. I very much felt that I was a victim of my circumstances and my life at the time. I was surrounded by a lot of, initially when I first came across the principles, I was going through a divorce. It helped me, but I still was very much feeling that it was an outside-in experience. And then when I came across it again, I was experiencing death within my family and my sister, my mother. And so it felt again like an outside-in, but slowly but surely, I just couldn't deny that, it really was, my thinking was creating my experience. So
that's amazing. And I see what you just had on screen there, Sid's words about the paintbrush. That, it's such a simple insight, a simple truth, if you will. And just like you, even though, you had a taste and then not quite there, but it didn't let you go. This inner prompting, this inner call to service, call to live in well-being didn't let you go. And that's the beauty of knowing that we're born in that feeling. We're born with knowing, although we may not oftentimes not realize it. Sometimes, we'll find a natural in our journey, in our life, somebody that lives there without knowing anything about the principles. And I love that because it shows in a way that it has nothing to do with the form of the principles, this understanding. It truly is natural. It truly is something that we're born with. Sid often said in many ways, it's not just that we have wisdom, we are wisdom. And that makes a huge difference. That one little word, the difference between we have wisdom and we are wisdom. I don't even know, like in terms of the definition, I've never tried to figure it out. I just know that's true.
Yeah, it feels like if we are, then we can never be detached from it. But when we have it, it's almost like we could lose it. That's for me. I don't know. I mean, that's just what I feel when. I mean, I love your book. I love all your books. But there's just such a simplicity and an ordinariness about it, and profundity about it too. But when you talk about when you used to say that mind has my back, and then you realize that you are mind.
Yes.
It's like it's not outside of you protecting you. It's just part of you. It is in you. I love
what you said, just when you gave your understanding that if we have wisdom, that we can be disconnected in some way. But when we are wisdom, we can never be disconnected. I love that. I'd never thought about it in quite those terms. So I love what you said. That's absolutely true.
Yes. Before I came across the principles, I studied so much. I had such a story of shame coming into this world, like sort of in the 50s, illegitimate was a big, and I dissected that word and it meant not legitimate. Like the rest of the world was legitimate, but I wasn't. So I shouldn't be here. And I just had that story. And even though I could never, ever believe that I was really as equal to anybody else. And it was when I came across the principles that it sort of left theory and became a reality for me. Something that I knew deep down in my essence of my being, that it was indisputable, even when my head would want to go there. It's just indisputable.
And look what you're doing now. Look what you're offering to the world with these interviews and what you do, just living in your well-being and in your knowing.
And I think sharing too that even if you've come from a place of thinking of insecurity and thinking, I'm shy, I'm an introvert, I shouldn't be doing this. It's just thoughts.
Yes.
Why would I let that get in the way of me doing something that I love doing so much, which is being in this conversation with incredible people that are doing amazing things in the world. So.
And like so many of us, as you pointed out at the conference, the pioneers in this understanding who were directly mentored by Sid, most of us are just ordinary Joes, ordinary working people, homemakers, yes, some professional mental health people and service providers and psychologists and lawyers and all that. But some of the very early people that listened to Sid, with Ken and I amongst them, some were homeless here on Salt Spring Island, living in their cars. One couple who was an attorney who had left his position in a major city in Canada because he was so disillusioned by society. And so he moved to Salt Spring with his wife and set up a teepee in a field, thinking, I'm going to go back to the land. And and discovered that although nature was beautiful and nurturing, there were still no real answers there. And then he happened to meet Sid. And as Sid drew more and more people to him on this little island, some that were living here, some that were drawn here, almost by the magnetism of this energy, that they would show up not even knowing why they had come here. And then just somehow would meet Sid in the village or in a cafe having a cup of tea or a bowl of soup, and would end up talking to him. And he, as he discovered kind of who these people were, would say to them, look, you can't leave society. You are society. And when you have insights about who and what you are from the inside out, you will serve society in a way that you never have before. And society will change from the inside out. And I saw that happen. I saw that particular attorney in particular start an office here on Salt Spring because he had an insight that, yes, I can't leave society. I am society. And began to serve the population here on the island, and was so recognized by his colleagues in the big city that he was sought out as a consultant and ended up doing work all around Canada.
Wow, beautiful.
And that happened over and over again with people that were first drawn to Sid, that were carpenters, or, as I say, living in their cars. So it was like the first community project really happened on Salt Spring. I know the Medela project that happened in Miami that Dr. Roger Mills pioneered is an incredible example, and the first major global example of community changing. But the first little community that changed was here on Salt Spring Island under the umbrella of Sid's guidance.
That's beautiful. And it's just, I think you talk about, we don't, I know when I share the principles, I just don't go into my head about explaining what they are, because I can't, quite honestly. I keep out of there. It's just, I share how it's affected my life and how it's allowed me to live beyond anything I could have ever thought before. In a way that, again, like you say, the peacefulness, the love, the just that sort of natural confidence. I used to think I always had to get it from outside, another accomplishment, another training, another something out there. And it's just been such a gentle, beautiful journey sort of back inside. And like you say, everything is inside us, everything we need, which is so beautiful.
That is beautiful, Del. Wow.
Thank you.
I don't think I've ever heard you say quite as much, because I've met you at various trainings and all that, and you do share sometimes privately, but I've never heard you so publicly share your knowledge, and it really is beautiful. You have so much wisdom.
Thank you. Well, so let's talk a little bit about the Three Principles School. I know that you've got another one coming up, and I know I'm going to be there. I love it. So thank you for allowing me back.
Well, thank you for coming again, and thank you for bringing this up. I actually meant to send you the link and all that, but the school is, I did write it down, is June 21st to the 24th on Salt Spring Island. And people, if they're interested, can go to the threeprinciplesfoundation.org website, and they'll see the information there. And all they need to do to get an invitation is just add their name to the database, and they'll receive an invitation.
Okay, wonderful. And anything else coming up? I know you're going to be in London at the conference, is that right?
Going to be in London, and that is...
I have that somewhere too. I'll be there too. June, I think it's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th.
The second, third, and the fourth.
Yes, that's right.
Going to be in London, and then I'm going to be in Norway doing a retreat after that.
Beautiful.
June the 8th and 9th in Tonsberg, Norway.
Wonderful.
And so if anybody in Europe gets your radio program
Yeah,
or this
well,
YouTube video,
yeah, they will.
we would love to have them
Okay.
join us. I don't think they're quite full yet in
right.
Norway. And I don't think the school is full yet either, that there's room for a few more.
Well, I can't recommend it enough. It's so beautiful. And thank you for putting up with my head cold today. I'm a little fuzzy, but you're so grounded and present and beautiful. I sort of got there too in the end. So
thank you so much again, Del, for inviting me and for sharing your wisdom with me. I won't forget what you said about the distinction of have wisdom. Feels like you could disconnect, but when you are wisdom, it's yours.
thank you.